Good afternoon. While you were talking, I just wanted to let you know that at Stanford Hospital, our senior vice president, I love this title, is a senior vice president of talent and culture, which I thought it fits in very well. I've been really moved by the people I've heard, and I'm changing all of my stories based on what I've heard. What I'm going to do is give you 3 stories, one from Asia, one from Europe, and one from Africa, and then tell you how they connected with people. The first one is from China. It's very short. It's about a minute. Once there was a farmer, and the farmer found his axe missing one day. He suspected his neighbor's son. The boy walked like a thief, the boy looked like a thief, and the boy acted like a thief. But one day while the farmer was in the valley, he found his missing axe, and he remembered that he was the one who had lost his axe. And the next time he saw the neighbor's son, the boy walked, the boy looked, and the boy acted like any other child. Now, I've had young people come up and tell me how they have been stereotyped, but I will also tell you that I've had people, adults, come up to me to tell me that they had done that same action with other people. And instead of us pointing the finger at them, the story got inside them, and they recognized themselves. Second story is from Germany. I love this story. It happened 15 to 18 years ago in New York City. The classroom was primarily Latino and black with a Latino teacher. One day, a young man married a woman, and when he married the woman, they had a son. And at nighttime, the man, the woman, the grandson, and the grandfather would sit around the table. But the grandfather was very old, and the grandfather loved his son, and loved his grandson, and the grandson loved his grandfather. One day, the grandfather had a bowl of soup, and the bowl of soup fell onto his shirt. And when it did, his son and his daughter-in-law screamed and yelled at the old man. One day again, the old man had his bowl of soup fall onto his shirt, but this time the bowl fell onto the floor and it broke. The young man and the young woman picked the old man up, screaming and yelling, and they placed him on the floor next to the stove. And that day, and days after, that old man cried as he watched his daughter-in-law, his son, and his grandson eat at the table that he used to eat at. But again, one day the bowl fell and broke, and this time the son said, "Father, you're going to have to eat out of a wooden bowl and a wooden spoon. You can't break a wooden bowl." A couple days later, the dad and the mom and the little boy were out in the woods, and the little boy had a bag, and he was putting branches in the bag. Son, what are you doing?" "Mom, Dad, when you get to be old, I'm going to give you wooden bowls the way you gave to Grandpa." And then they had tears in their eyes. And when they went back to the house that day, they picked the old man up. They put him at the table, and they gave him a regular bowl with a regular spoon, and never again did they complain. So I tell that story to this class of Latino and black kids, and I said, "Where's that story from?" And they go, "Man, that story from the hood." I never forgot that. So then I said, "Can I have the map?" And I pointed to Germany, and I said, "Who lives in Germany?" And they said, "We don't know." And I said, "White people. Boys and girls, you didn't know who that was in that story, but you saw yourself." Once there was a man who owned black and white cattle. They were no ordinary cattle. And the man cared for the cattle as if they were his own children. Every morning he would take his cattle to graze on the grass, and because of the grass that the cattle ate, they gave off a white, frothy milk. But one morning, when the man went to milk his cows, he noticed that their udders were empty and withered, and they gave no milk. A second morning he went to milk his cows, and again their udders were empty and withered, and they gave no milk. And the third morning their udders were empty and withered, and they gave no milk. The man said, I will stay up all night to find out what is happening to my cows. And so he did. It was in the middle of the night that he saw it. He saw a rope drop down from the heavens until it touched the earth. And he saw women descending the rope carrying huge calabashes, huge gourds. He knew who they were. They were the sky people. They would place their gourds on the earth beneath the cows and milk the cows until the gourds overflowed with the white frothy milk, and then they would ascend the rope. The man noticed that one woman was more beautiful than all the others, and he decided that he would marry her. He ran after her. All the other women got away, but when he caught her, he struggled and she struggled. He struggled and she struggled until he said, Woman, woman, I only want to marry you. She ceased her struggling. Man, I will marry you on one condition. I've got this finely woven basket here, and you must promise never to open that basket without my permission, for if you do, harm will come both to you and to me. The man agreed, and they were married. That man loved his wife. That woman loved her husband. But after years of loving marriage, that man said, I wonder what she keeps in that basket. And one day while his wife was outside milking the cows, he went over to the basket. What harm's going to come to me if I look in the basket? After all, she is my wife. What's in that basket is mine too. He took the top off. He looked inside. Ha! The basket was empty. He placed the top back on. An hour later, his wife walks in. She looks into her husband's eyes. Husband, what did you do today? Ha! I looked in your basket. Husband, what did you see? Ha! The basket was empty. And with those words, she walked over to the basket. She picked it up, and she held it close to her breast. My husband, whom I love so much, you looked into the basket, and you saw that it was empty. But I kept all the beautiful things from the sky in the basket for you. And if you had waited, I would have taught you to see. And then she left. The woman who came from the sky went back to the sky. And it is still the same today. People still think that the things of the Spirit must be seen. I tell that story in churches. They think it's a Christian story. I tell that story in synagogues. They think it's a Jewish story. It's an Islamic peace story. 25, 30 years ago, I told this story in St. Louis in front of 300 or 400 young people. And there was this young woman, and you can tell when somebody's listening really deeply to the story. She hoodwinked me afterwards, and she said, I need to talk to you. And I said, what? And she goes, I know why you told that story. And I tell that story for universal reasons. And she said, that story is about me. And I said, do you mind sharing it? And she said, my father sexually abused me from age 5 through age 13. And until I heard this story, it never occurred that I could ever get my basket back. I'm going to need one more story. It's going to be a personal story since Bonnie and everybody does personal stories. And I told this in Greenwich at Bonnie's evening one night. In 1975, I was 25 years old. Do not do the math. And I was at the checkout counter in Allentown, Pennsylvania at Acme Supermarket. Right in front of me is a 2-year-old boy with his mother. They were white, and I'm black. The mother's putting stuff in the basket, her food in the basket, but the little boy is looking up at me, and back then I had an afro, and I'm going to be the little boy, and that's going to be up there, and I need to show you how he was looking at me. He had a pacifier in his mouth. He was like this. And I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and he points to me, and he goes, you got a chocolate face. Immediately, his mother went, shh. I said, no, ma'am. Leave your little boy alone. I got down on my knees, and I poked him in the shoulder, and I said, and you got a vanilla face. And he and I laughed. And then I stood up to his mother, and I said, Miss, I believe that your little boy's favorite ice cream is chocolate. You all want to guess my favorite ice cream? Vanilla. Thank you all very much.